So the idea of Steven Spielberg doing the autobiographical filmmaker origin story movie just feels weird, right? I mean, in the sense that he's of the last generation where you're not expected to do that, or rather, if you are, you're expected to do it a lot but leave out being a film nerd from the story, like something you're still kind of vaguely embarrassed about, and using your grown-up film job to live out the cooler profession the kid version of you might have aimed to have and otherwise. Like how we all get that the For As Long As I Remember thing in Goodfellas is as much about Scorsese as it was about Henry Hill, and there's a reason that Star Wars main character is named Luke S.
You just blew my mind! Our minds have been blown!
So it's appropriate to discover that if you're coming into the Fabelmans, which to be clear about it is 100% openly declared to be the real names filed off biopic of young Spielberg and his family from the director's own perspective, is a lot less of a magic of the movies, nostalgia trip, or a how I figured out how to do this self-history and the marketing may have suggested. This is for the most part Spielberg in downbeat, moody character piece mode, grappling with the anxiety-riddled bully kid, resentful about his parents' divorce backstory that so famously influenced the tonal extremes and American artifice of his early mega-hits like E.T. and Close Encounters. The poet laureate for imaginary happy childhoods he and other boomers share a collective sense must have been had by everyone else but them, and that this is a deeply unfair, unhealed wound for which the rest of us all must suffer, and also mommy issues out the wazoo because this is an autobio about a film director, and some cliches are cliches for a reason. Ahem. So anyway, what this means in practical terms is that the storyline of young Sammy Fabelman discovering that he loves movies, has a knack for making them on his own with his friends, and wanting to pursue it as a career is only one, and not necessarily the most prominent or driving of three narratives spread out across the film's late 50s to early 70s narrative tracks, the other two being the equally familiar Spielberg bio sign points of "My parents' divorce really fucked me up," and "Being the Jewish kid in a mid-20th century American high school was not fun," the conceit of the narrative being that Sammy finds the process of shooting and editing film therapeutic because it's a way of both making sense of what he doesn't realize until he's older is actually a pretty chaotic family life, but also a way to literally reframe and control that chaos into the more preferable and manageable cinematic form where he can control it until he can't. At issue is the fraught relationship of his parents, played by Paul Dano and Michelle Williams. He's a milquetoast nerdy engineer who keeps getting moved around the country to bigger jobs. She's a pianist whose potential as a musician and artist, and who knows what else, were very clearly derailed by being encouraged toward marriage and homemaking instead, and is also very clearly straining under the weight of some undiagnosed anxiety illness, and is also having something like a long-term, maybe not emotional affair with her and her husband's mutual best friend, played by Seth Rogen, which is really obvious to everyone but her husband, and is eventually discovered by Sammy while editing some home movies because his arc requires him to discover the dark side of filmmaking's power to reveal the truth in the world around him, thus forcing him to confront whether he'll truly accept the call. I mean, also, maybe that's what actually happened, or a version of it, but that's the function of it in the screenplay. Formulas exist for a reason. There's even a scene in the third act of this movie involving the resolution of Sammy's conflicts with an anti-Semitic bully in his high school, explicitly laying out that exact point about formulas existing for a reason, which is also sort of the weakest part of the film, but mainly because it comes in too late and doesn't get a lot of room to breathe. These kinds of stories that happen over decades are hard to pull off for exactly this reason. It always feels like another short movie is starting up in the third act when you're actually coming in towards the wind down. That's not to say the high school business is bad, more that it just feels like there's simultaneously not enough of it for the payoff to matter very much, as in, why do I care whether he came to terms with these two evil jocks or not? And thus also too much because it kind of pulls from the main storyline here, which is really compelling. As clearly delineated three-act structures go, the POV arc of Sam seeing his mother as a fun, free spirit and dad as a square, being too annoyed by both of them to understand them as human beings, particularly his father, and then finally understanding them as human beings as an adult is good stuff, and Williams gets the showy, literally all singing, all dancing, I'm a stifled 60s housewife having a breakdown under deliberately unflattering lighting, give me an Oscar role. And Dano is also really good in the role where his job is to be thanklessly backgrounded, both very good stuff. And ditto Rogen also doing nice understated work in an unexpectedly complicated role. Yeah, you'll hear a lot also about Judd Hirsch and David Lynch turning up for single scene, big personality parts that are major crowd pleasers. It's good. It's a well-acted, dramatic film. I imagine some folks may come away being disappointed that there isn't more of the budding young filmmaker learning the craft stuff, but that's not really the point of the movie. It's about the family drama, and that stuff works. I'm not sure it comes together as a whole with more to say than, okay, Steve, I finally see where you're coming from, and it's probably not an all-timer from a director who already has a lot of those, but it's a solid 8 out of 10 for me, and yeah, when it hits, it really does hit. So again, 8 out of 10 for Fabelmans. Good stuff. Check it out.